gentle reader. Did you miss me?
Hello and welcome to another adventure here on my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Bridgerton because I know I'm late to the party, but I finally watched it and I have some thoughts, I have some opinions. I know that I said even on this channel that I was never going to watch it, that it was not for me, it was just not my thing. But then my best friend told me, hey, it's not what you think it is. Maybe give it a shot. I think you would like it. And she knows my taste pretty well. So recently when I was sick and laying in bed for a few days, I decided, okay, let me give this show a shot. And spoiler alert for this video, I am very, very glad that I did because I ended up really enjoying the show. So what I thought it was, and the reason I was not going to watch it is because I thought it was basically going to be Jane Austen with more sex. That was the impression I got of this show, that it would be very much like the Pride and Prejudice movie, like the Sense and Sensibility movie, which I've seen both those movies. I enjoyed both of those movies, but unless I am on an Alan Rickman kick again, which may happen, and I want to watch all his work, I probably won't be rewatching either of them anytime soon because they were fine. I enjoyed them. I'm glad I watched them, but they didn't capture me. They didn't really grab me. They are not my favorite movies ever. They're fun, they're good movies. If you love them, please continue loving them. It's just not quite for me. So I thought that's what I was going to get. And while some people may say like that's kind of what it is, I would disagree because even though it's a historical romance, I think tonally it is very, very different than those Jane Austen movies. Because honestly, I don't think I could have handled 8 hours of television of those Jane Austen movies. Like, there is a reason I didn't watch Downton Abbey. Great show, my mom loved it, it's not for me. Something about the tone of those really serious historical dramas, even if it technically is a romance like Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility, it's just not quite what I go for. I find them too heavy, and if I'm gonna watch more heavy, serious media, I tend to like for it to be sci-fi, fantasy, but I'm just not the biggest fan of historical realism in that tone. So when I told my best friend that that's why I wasn't gonna watch the show, she was like, no, it's not that. You might like it. Give it a chance. It's more rom-com-y. It's more about the queen picks the diamond of the season and you have this romance going on, and I think you would like it. And I was like, okay, well, if she's telling me I would like it, and honestly, with most of these like streaming shows, it's super hot when it comes out and for the next few weeks, and then everyone moves on because there's not new content for a long length of time. But with Bridgerton, I just feel like it hasn't stopped. Like, I've continued to hear about Bridgerton, even though it's been, what, 6 months since the second season came out. There was like an in-person event. I know Swell Entertainment went to it. I enjoyed her video about that because even though I hadn't watched Bridgerton, I will watch pretty much anything Swell Entertainment puts out. There was the whole unofficial Bridgerton musical drama. Like, I felt like this series just stayed in the cultural zeitgeist more than its peers typically do. So I watched this show, and what did I get? And there will be some spoilers for Bridgerton in this video. However, I am probably the last person on earth to have watched it, so you've probably seen it. You probably don't need a spoiler warning. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest it. Even if you don't think it would be your thing, it's really good. It is really, really well done for what it is. And what it is a historical rom-com, an alternate history historical rom-com. That is the vibe it gives rather than something very serious. It was fantastic, turn my brain off, escapist media. It was perfect for the fact that I was sick and I just have a lot of stress going on in my life right now, and I just wanted to escape into a TV show, into this fun other world, and go on an adventure and enjoy it. It is fantastic for that. Because what it honestly felt like to me was a fairy tale aimed at adults. It felt more like I was a little kid again watching a Disney movie. It was like that same emotion. Even though this is obviously a show for adults, there is a lot of sex scenes in the first season. The first several episodes I was like, what? There's hardly any sex scenes in this. Why did I hear that? And then I got to the part of the show that they started and I was just like, oh, this is why. This is why I was warned of this. So it's definitely a show for adults, but it kind of has this childlike innocence in its way of looking at the world. Like, yes, the characters are still dealing with difficult, heavy subjects and death and loss, especially in the second season. You get into like trauma and stuff, but love will always win in the end. It will have a happy ending, and you don't have to worry about, oh, are they gonna pull some crazy twist on me? Which I feel like that's why I saw the critique that the show is really predictable. But honestly, for me, that was appealing because I didn't want something heavy. I didn't want something that was going to break my heart and kill off the main character and do something crazy. I didn't want something that was going to give me that Game of Thrones twist. That's not what this show was meant to be, and that's not what I wanted from this show, and that's not what I was enjoying from this show. I was enjoying that it was light and happy and that I knew love would win in the end. I didn't have to worry about like big heartbreak and negative emotions while watching this show, even though they did deal with heavy topics. I liked that it had that same fairy tale Disney movie feel in that it would end with happily ever after, but it was still a show made for my age, because I am someone who I will go back and I'll watch kids shows and kids movies sometimes when I want that kind of escapist feeling, when I want something light and happy and that is just going to let me relax for a while. But when I watch those, I go in knowing like, yeah, this is a kids show. This is something that it is going to be a little more simplistic, but I am willing to deal with that. And in some cases, I even go to it for that and enjoy that, because I want that happy ending and that assurance that I am not going to get some sudden plot twist or anything. And I feel like Bridgerton was the adult show that did that. It was the fairy tale. That doesn't mean it's not without its problems, because there was, especially one scene in particular, that the light, happy, love will win in the end tone of the show didn't work well with, because it was a scene where our leading lady of the first season maritally does something to her husband that if I said the word on YouTube, they might demonetize me. And it really felt out of place, and they didn't deal with it in the narrative in a way that was appropriate for the heaviness of an act like that. In fact, she was angry at him afterwards. And it's like, yeah, he kind of misled you, but what you did in response was disgusting and not okay in the slightest. And it just didn't work at all with the show. And it really stood out. And it kind of felt like the show, I am driving down this nice twisting highway. It's entertaining, but relaxing. And then all of a sudden there is just this huge speed bump out of nowhere. And then we just kind of keep going and don't acknowledge what just happened. But also, I don't know how a show with this tone would have acknowledged that in a way that is appropriate for the heaviness of the topic. So that was really my personal biggest criticism of the show. And I was glad that the second season didn't have anything like that, where you just go, are we gonna talk about that? Because that was truly messed up. And I also feel like the show had no reason to include that scene, to have Daphne go that far with the Duke in proving that he could have kids, he just didn't want to, because she learned from her maid. We saw her learn from her maid, ask, how does a woman become pregnant? The show could have easily transitioned right from that scene to her storming into his office and demanding answers. Like, we didn't need to see her force him to do that with her in order to get the same messaging across. That doesn't mean that I'm like, oh my gosh, this show is so problematic for doing that, I'm never watching it again, because I genuinely enjoyed the show. But I think it's important that even when dealing with media that we like, we can still be critical of it. And I still think it's important that we can be critical of media and still like it, because nothing is perfect. and Bridgerton definitely has its flaws, but that doesn't mean I'm like, oh, it's canceled, never again, never going to enjoy it. Personally, I really like how I feel the show learned from its first season and improved, because I feel like the second season was really good. It was my favorite between the two seasons. I liked Daphne and the Duke, and I really enjoyed the first season, and I was kind of like, oh no, how is the second season going to follow up? Because I really enjoyed that, minus the problematic speed bump along the way. But the second season just took everything I liked about the first season and made it better. I love an enemies to lovers plotline. Like, I am a sucker for that. That is my thing when it comes to rom-coms, romance novels, romantic media of any kind. I love enemies to lovers. I loved the back and forth between the lead characters, Anthony and Kate. I love the just blatant Shakespeare reference of having her be named Kate, because it's clearly like a Taming of the Shrew situation going on. I loved it. I loved the second season. I thought they did amazing. There was not nearly as many sex scenes, which I liked. I am someone who, I don't mind them, but I don't need them. I would prefer if my media didn't have a bunch of gratuitous sex scenes in it. It's just not what I'm looking for in a show, in a movie, in any type of media. It's just not for me, and that's okay. I also really love seeing the growth of the character Penelope, because when I was watching season 1, big spoilers coming up if you haven't watched it and I've continued to watch this video, I correctly guessed that she was Lady Whistledown. I had a hunch, I just had a feeling, and then when Lady Whistledown published about Miss Thompson, Marina Thompson, that she was pregnant, I was like, how did Lady Whistledown know that? Unless, and I was proven right, it was Penelope, and I loved how in the second season they really explored that, of what this secret identity psychologically does to Penelope, how she's having to work so hard to keep it a secret as the Lady Whistledown papers have continued to grow in popularity. I love it. I love that whole plot point. I love Lady Whistledown. I can't believe Julie Andrews is in the show. Like, why did no one tell me Julie Andrews is in the show? Because if you didn't know, she's the voice of Lady Whistledown, like when it's not Penelope.
My name is Lady Whistledown. You do not know me, but I know you.
It's Julie Andrews. Like, how cool is that? Oh my gosh. I love this show. I genuinely love this show, and I'm glad I decided to give it a shot. I really hope Penelope and Colin get together. I love their whole thing they got going on. I really want them to get together because I want Penelope to be happy. I think she is probably my favorite character on the show because I find her to be super interesting. That does not mean I think she's necessarily a super good person, but I don't think she's a bad person. I think she's a complex, interesting person, and that's what I personally love in any character. That's what I want. So since she is the most complex and interesting in my mind, that's why she is my favorite, but that does mean I want her to be happy. So I actually bought all of the Bridgerton novels for my grandma for Christmas. I know I'm doing Christmas shopping early, but it takes off stress by the time Christmas actually gets here. And my Nana loves to read. She loves romance novels. So I was like, I know, I'll buy her the Bridgerton books. And I may have read the back of the books just to make sure that Colin and Penelope end up together. Like that is the couple, because the ending of season 2, when he like shooed her off, when he like blew her off and she heard and he didn't know she heard, that was painful to me. I'm also really invested in her friendship with Eloise. I love their dynamic and I really hope they make up as friends. So yeah, that is mostly what I wanted to say. I watched the show and I have been geeking out and I've been needing to talk about it, to tell someone about it. And I was like, wait a second, this is what I have a YouTube channel for, to talk about things I want to talk about. So if you also love Bridgerton, please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I am ready to fandom. I cannot wait for the third season. I did go ahead and buy the Pat McGrath Bridgerton 2 palette since, let's be honest, that is the thing that first made me want to give this show a chance. That first made me go, do I want to watch the show so I can feel better about buying the palette? Maybe. And now that I actually genuinely love the show a lot and I'm still wanting the palette, I had to go ahead and buy it before my no buy kicked in, so I did grab that real quick. I know, ring the shame bell, panic buying before, but it's been on sale for a while, and I was like, it's limited edition and been on sale for a while. I feel like once it sells out, they're probably not bringing it back, and I really, really want it. So I got that. Also, another thing I want to say is I feel like the merch besides the Pat McGrath collection has been really lacking for this show. And usually if I don't like the official merch for a show, I can just go find fan-made merch and I'll be like, okay, this is great, and I'll get the fan-made stuff instead. But I'm gonna be honest, the Bridgerton fandom has not been bringing it when it comes to the fan-made merch. I found a sweatshirt that I thought was cute that I put on my Christmas wish list, but yeah, I just feel like a show like this with such a good aesthetic, there should be more better merch. And then I realized it's because this is a normal people fandom. Like, it's not a fandom people fandom. It's not primarily people who engage in fandom who are necessarily the show's main demographic and the people who love the show. It's non-fandom people. This is one of their fandoms. And I think that's why the merch has been so lacking. But with that, there we go. I went from someone who was not going to watch Bridgerton, who didn't think I would like it, to someone who genuinely loves Bridgerton, and that is why it was very different. It was the fairy tale for adults that I feel like I needed right now during this stressful time. It's great escapist television, and that's not to say it doesn't have problems, but overall I am very excited for what is to come, and I definitely will be reading the Bridgerton novels. I just really need more Bridgerton content right now. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Seriously, I think my favorite part of the show is just like Lady Whistledown's existence. Her whole papers, like the tea of it all, I love it. I love the incorporation of Lady Whistledown in just like every aspect of Bridgerton. I know my hair is different today, but I saw this Instagram tutorial of how to do Natasha from Black Widow's like hair, her battle braids, and I tried it. I think it's cute. I think it's fun.